Yes, people, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to the daonlyahyah's weekly preview of the Premier League. Now, on this week's preview, there's so much to talk about because it's international break. So we had so many things happen throughout that time. Managers being fired. We have the build-up of the Manchester derby. We had issues with VAR and Howard Webb talking about a few things. And we're just going to bring it all to you today on this show. But not only that, we're going to break down each game to you as usual. Bring you the headlines, bring you some of the managerial quotes, etc. And not only that, we'll stick around to the end so you can see my predictions. And also, you can join the Fantasy Premier League team. And you can also join our league, which I will put the link to the description. So let's jump into it with me right away. Before we have to decide on where and who and how the games are gonna go, we need to know who's playing who, yeah? So this is the match week games, as we have Arsenal playing Forest, as Arsenal's looking for their first win since Liverpool. We have Bournemouth playing Brighton, which for me, that game is called the derby of the talent of scouts. Then also you have Crystal Palace as Ole Glasner continues to try to go on a run with his very small team. We have the Jack Grealish derby between Everton and Aston Villa as he returns, as Aston Villa goes to Jack's home. And then you have Fulham versus Leeds. Now Fulham has been having a hard time with VAR. So within that, we're going to be talking about what some comments were made about Marcus Silva and Howard Webb answering and stuff like that. Then you have the Mohamed Kudus, i.e. Paqueta derby. And as you all know, West Ham has banned people from making half and half scarves because of the kind of tension between what happened between them and Lucas Paqueta. And not only that, but Brentford playing Chelsea, another game as Chelsea has some injuries, and the Manchester derby. So there's a lot for us to unpack right in this small 10 games in which we want to talk about. Now, Arsenal playing Forest, Ange Postecoglou coming in. He is basically saying that he wins trophies in every year. And I'm tired of hearing Ange with the same rhetoric. Like, bro, you did not win a trophy in your first year at Tottenham. Can we just make that clear? So all this talking about, oh, I win the double at Celtic, mate. Like, shut the fuck up, man. Like, there comes a time when we know that I think you're a bluff. You know, as much as I think what you are doing benefits Greek football, Australian football, so the Asian Pacific area and all that, I also think that you do yourself a disjustice by thinking you're this elite manager when you are not. You are not in the same category with Pep and these other managers because you just think that because you won a couple championships in Scotland, bruv. Like, it doesn't work that way. And I'm not the kind of guy that tries to put down the accomplishments of any professional in any profession, because everyone works hard to be in a certain position. Yes, sometimes you have nepotism, sometimes people don't deserve it, but at the end of the day, generally, most times, people are in a position because they actually work hard for it. You know, not because your dad give you millions of dollars, make you a great businessman. You can lose that money, just like how your dad made that money. Nothing is guaranteed, so everyone has to put in some sort of work to be able to get something done. So within that, like, I don't hate Ange Postecoglou for the hard work that he does. But what I do hate about this man is the way he speaks. It's like he's this elite manager and he's not. He's not. Winning in Australia is not the same as winning in England. And okay, I get it. He won the Europa League with Tottenham and he beat Manchester United. But that was one, a poor Manchester United team. Two, Tottenham was 16th in the league. Three, in his second season, and not only that, he won the Europa League against a poor Manchester United, and Manchester United was the best team in that game. His team was even poor against a poor Manchester United, and that is with high quality players. Now you're telling me this man deserves to have a team of players like Nottingham Forest, who one are hitting and punching way above the levels of which they can play, and two, he is going into a team that cannot play that high type of intensity football he wants to play. So how is he a perfect fit for this club when all the things are telling us, all the points that we put down in front of us are more of cons than they are pros. The only pro really for me is that a Greek manager goes to a Greek owner. So it's good for Greek football. But other than that, it doesn't benefit Nottingham Forest. And the more pressure, he's already putting pressure on players and on Forest guys by saying, oh, I win a trophy every year. That's not how it works, Ange. That doesn't work for every club. You so happen to get to a period where you were able to do that with Tottenham because of the quality of the players of Tottenham. Let's not forget that running that they had to the finals was probably the easiest for any team in the competition. They didn't play any big team. They didn't play any big team to get to the finals. The favourites played each other in Lyon and Manchester United. You remember that game? Remember how many goals scored in that game at Old Trafford when Lyon thought they won? When Shirky and Lacazette was laughing at the side and then United came back and smashed them from nowhere. Like, we have to be aware that all of this happened last season. And Ange Postecoglou was a part of that poor Tottenham team. So I just don't know how Nottingham Forest thinks that going to pick him up was a good idea. But on from Ange Postecoglou, let's talk about another delusional manager in Arteta. Now, Arteta lost to Liverpool 1-0 and David Raya came out about talking about the ball and all that. We all know this. But my problem is with Arsenal also is they have massive injury problems. You have Saka, you have Saliba, you have Havertz. They have players that are integral to the way they play and they are not available for selection. Now, for me, the biggest miss always for Arsenal will be Saka. They cannot replace Saka as much as Madueke is a really good player. Technically, I like him. I think he is very one-dimensional though. But other than that, like, I think he's a good player. He has potential to be a really good player. And Arteta isn't getting the best out of this team and he has to start to fire and he has to pick up some momentum because as much as he's picked up results, he has 6 points. You know, and I try to tell people this. You can win 2 games and lose the rest 4, yeah? You can win 2 games and lose 4. And I can win all those 6 games and we have the same, draw all those 6 games and we can have the same amount of points. So it's not something that isn't hard to accomplish. You have to keep that momentum going. You have to keep winning games. You have to play good brand of football to eventually start picking up proper results because you can't just keep trying to win games based on you just trying to just win this game. Yes, you got to win a game. Yes, it's important to win the game. And at the end of the day, eventually, it is about 3 points. But you also have to make sure that your team plays a brand of football that you know is able to continuously keep playing that brand of football to make that club successful. So there's so many things within that statement that I just made. You can have like different ways of seeing it. But Arsenal has to do better. They have to play better football and they have to win doing that as well. It's the demand of playing for a big club. Now, talking about big clubs, we see these 2 teams next on the list operating like really big clubs in terms of their recruitment. Bournemouth just sold 2 players to the best 2 teams in world football at the moment in PSG and Real Madrid. And then it also shows that Brighton is continuously producing talent that can play at the highest level. And every time they go into a big club, yes, some of these players might take a time to acclimatize to the club and might take a settling period. But the minute they settle, their level rises to another thing. You know, you have the Caicedos, the João Pedros. You're looking at players like Manchester United looking at Balebas. You have a player like Matoma. Yeah, there's so many quality players around that Brighton have that you can just pick one and just stick into a big team. Pick another one, stick into a big team. And that is big based on their recruitment. Not only the way they recruit their players, how they recruit their managers based on data, based on statistics, based on so many different aspects of the game they base their recruitment, each one on. And it's amazing to watch two small clubs in the Premier League who not, bro, both of these clubs recently just came back up into the league, you know. Not recently was Bournemouth just relegated, as well as Brighton came up and just stayed in the league since then. And it shows, one, that they've had really good recruitment, but not only that, their recruitment levels are high, it's just how they run the club, man. You don't ever really hear anything going on in these clubs. You know, you don't. And I'm not saying that because they're smaller clubs. Yes, the media don't really care about them, but also these clubs are able to keep certain things in house, and I respect them for that. Now, when you look at other games like Crystal Palace and Sunderland, which is another game that we're about to talk about soon, but before we do that, I just want to draw a reference to something about the Premier League and the level of the Premier League, because I feel like people overshadow this and overlook this very much. But when you look at the Premier League, right, when you have teams like Bournemouth and Brighton who recently just came up from from like championship level, yeah, we can all agree that both of those teams few years ago were at the championship level. Either they were playing in the championship, or they just came up to the Premier League, or they were fighting relegation, whatever. They were at championship level. Now, to watch these teams be able to create a recruitment system and team where they can have these quality of players, it speaks to the level also of the Premier League. I don't think people understand or realize that the ceiling of the Premier League is so high in terms of quality that it's very hard for managers to adapt to how quick this league is moving. And that is where, for me, I respect managers like Arteta, like Pep, like Klopp, like these managers that were able to stay in the top half, the top 4 or 5 of the table. It's hard, you know. That's why managers like Ole should get more respect, because he was able to do that with a Manchester United team that was pretty much below its ceiling. And this just shows the level of the Prem. And this shows that you can take no team as a joke in the Premier League, especially when teams want to beat you. And the more teams take you on, the more teams feel that you are vulnerable, it's the more they stick their foot down. And the more they go at you. You know, you can't go and play Bournemouth or Brighton and play them soft. They will hit you 4-5-0. Brighton just beat Man City in the game before the international window, beating them 2-1. And City had a full squad. So it's not like these teams are some joke clubs. But I had to really just share that, because the level of the Premier League is rising. And it's rising every window. Not even every summer, every year, every transfer window. The Premier League is becoming more difficult and better and better. And we're going to see a thing where teams are going to keep changing players very fast. The Premier League is pretty much going to be like a draft. Every year you're going to see a lot of teams changing their players very quickly, very fast. We're no longer going to see a lot of squads stay together, because as soon as you're not hitting your full potential, these clubs are going to get rid of you. For sure, for sure, for sure. So back into it. Now, Everton, Crystal Palace plays Sunderland. Everton plays Aston Villa. Now, Crystal Palace, the Oliver Glasner situation. And for me, this is one of the biggest problems I have also with the journalism in football, is when people talk about Oliver Glasner, they talk about him as this great manager. And he is one of my favorite managers. I've been saying this way before he came to the Premier League. Oliver Glasner is a worry in European football. And when I saw him went to Palace, I was quite shocked, because especially when he went there, it was already around the period of time Ten Hag's job was being, you know, on an iffy stage, the Ineos situation. So for me, seeing that, I thought that they would have went after Oliver Glasner. Now, it could have been the fact that they didn't want to go after a manager that plays 3-4-3, but then they ended up with one that plays pretty much the same. So they, you know, it's I was very disappointed in the situation, as you can tell. But he's a really good manager. Oliver Glasner likes to take smaller players, smaller clubs, and build them up into great things. Before we never really understood how good Frankfurt was because we don't watch the German league as much, or we don't get to watch the games as much. But Frankfurt was hitting levels that a lot of people were scared of. He won the Europa League with Frankfurt. He came and won trophies with Palace. So this man is in an upward trajectory. And his teams are playing very good football as well. So you have to respect that about Oliver Glasner. And then you see players like Mateta, still being there scoring goals. He reincarnating Ismail Assar. Before we used to laugh at Sarr when he was at Watford. No, look at the play he is at Palace. One of the best players, I would say, currently in the Premier League in terms of output for the club that he's at. And in Sunderland, they brought in a few really good players. And I think I have said it already, I just think that Sunderland may be safe, but they're going to be down there fighting a bit of relegation. They have some quality players that they've brought in, and Dingra and all these guys, and they look like they are creating a bond to create a really good team down there. So it's very important that they just fight to stay in the league. They're not afraid to spend their money, and it's a real good watch. And I'm very happy to see that they are taking strides into making their club better as quick as possible to stay in the league, because Sunderland is a big club. Sunderland is a massive club, and they deserve to be able to stay in the Premier League, because it looks good for the league that a team like Sunderland comes back and is able to stay in there. Now, Everton versus Aston Villa. Jack Grealish, as usual, taking the headlines, and this is about the Jack Grealish derby. Now, I think he should have just stayed at Aston Villa, but you can't turn down 100 million for one of your best players when your team needs some sort of revamping. And at that period, he had to go. Now, should he have gone to Man City? You can't take back what you have done. And also, we also need to realize that Jack Grealish deserved a big move in his career. Going to a United from a Villa at that period, it was not that much of a difference in terms of United was playing well. Yeah, they were competing, but they weren't competing at the highest level or competing for trophies. So I do understand why Jack Grealish made that move, and I do understand why now he made this move to Everton. And it's important for him to try his best to get into the England squad. Now, do I think he will get into the England squad? There is a massive possibility he goes in front of Anthony Gordon. For me, it's a push-up between him and Gordon for a spot, because Rashford is definitely on the plane. No doubt. As long as Rashford keeps playing games for Barcelona and he is fit, Thomas Tuchel is walking with Marcus Rashford. So that is no doubt about it. Grealish has to work out Anthony Gordon first. Get him out the team, and then he can start to push himself forward. Because Anthony Gordon has a ceiling. He's a good player, don't get me wrong, but he has a ceiling, and he's not that guy. Just like Ilanga, I think they're really good players, Premier League players in terms of pace. They have some power. They have a bit of technicality. But in terms of, if I have to name the best wingers in positions, these guys don't come close to any conversations until we get to number, I have to say 40, 50, 60. They don't hit those marks. Alanga isn't one of the best right wingers in Europe. No, Newcastle picked him up because he did well in the league that they played. So they're like, shit, we have to buy him. But when you look at players like Acuna and Mbeumo, these guys are hitting numbers that are quality in Europe. You understand? Even Madueke isn't hitting these numbers. Now, I'm not saying these guys can't hit these numbers, because it's very possible for them to hit these numbers. But I'm just saying, there's a lot of things that goes on in between that. Now, when you look at the situation again with Everton and Villa, you look at Villa, and they have just brought in 3 really good players from top clubs. Now, Lindelof was a free agent, yes. Sancho, a lot of people want Sancho to fail, but I think if Emery is able to hold Jadon Sancho, and get the best of Jadon Sancho, which I don't find it hard because he's done this with a lot of players. Don Juma, just to name one I can remember in my mind right now. He turned that guy into a baller. He changed the way he played football. So there's a few players I really think that Emery likes to take up projects and mold certain players. And then you have the situation with Emi Martinez and all these things that caused a bit of drama for the club. And the club seemed like it couldn't get any players. And you had issues with Emery speaking about the situation with them not able to buy players, and he's happy, but they need quality. They have to compete at that level, and there's just so many things that have happened that I feel quite sorry for Unai Emery, and I feel like people don't really respect how hard and the kind of work he does and the clubs that he has built and the stability that he brings around clubs. Some of the best players still at Arsenal. The best player at Arsenal was given his chance by Unai Emery. Shaka. Saliba brought in by Unai Emery. You know, so when we really think about his talent ID and we really think about the quality of the guy, he deserves some more respect. Not talking about managers and respect, we look at this manager, Marco Silva. Now, Fulham cannot get a break. Fulham has had, I think Fulham, right, is the only club in the league, yeah, that I feel quite sorry for when it comes to situations of VAR. Now, let me tell you why I say this. Fulham has had the toughest time with VAR, bro. Fulham has had so many bad decisions against them with VAR that you can't even, be upset with the fact that when you see their manager come out saying certain things about VAR and the way people see the game and the way people treat Fulham, and he thinks that people have agendas against Fulham. It's true. I can't see any different when I see decisions go against them like what happens every game. Against Manchester United, iffy situation. And then now they played against Chelsea. They had a disallowed goal. Yeah. And for something that is poor. So if y'all didn't really see what happened, there was a play. Muniz spin on the ball, ended up on Chalaba's leg, drove through the space. They ended up scoring. The referee didn't make the call. He said it was a goal. And then VAR intervened. Now, that was basically a mistake on their part based on what was said by Howard Webb. And this is what he actually had to say about the situation and why it was wrong and what they've said to VAR to not intervene and how they shouldn't intervene in the way people play. So this is what he said about the situation when asked about the question. So they said,
firstly, it was wrong. We've established some principles in terms of how we officiate in the Premier League and how we use VAR. They sit around a high threshold for penalising contact. It aids the flow and rhythm and tempo of the game. We've also established a high bar for intervention with VAR.
So,
in other words, if situations are not clearly wrong and the referee has made a call on the field, that call will stand, or at least should stand. And that's the message that we give to all of our VARs, particularly when we come to taking away goals that are so obviously such a crucial moment in the game. We should only be taking goals away when the evidence is very clear that that's the only thing we can do, and that's the guidance that we give to our officials. In this situation, that guidance wasn't followed properly. There was a misjudgment by the officials involved in the situation about how that contact happened between Muniz and Chalobah. The officials got...
So you understand what he said? The purpose is not to interfere or referee the game. And we have told them many times, especially when it comes to a goal being chucked off, be very careful on the decision you're making because you're killing the emotion of the game. So how are they still making decisions based on them just thinking that it's the right thing to do to interfere in the football game? I cannot fathom how the Premier League still is struggling with VAR. 2025 and we still struggling with fucking technology? Come on, man. How are we struggling with technology in 2025? We have semi-automated offside. We have goal line technology. How the hell are people with cameras on everything making more mistakes now than people without when they didn't have cameras? It just doesn't make any sense. That is not an unnatural football situation. I'm turning on a football. Okay, yes, if I was the defender, I would want a foul. Obviously, like, that's what football is. You cry for each decision. But let's be honest. When you look at that, a man spinning on the ball. He can't stand up both feet on the ball because that's more dangerous for that player than it is for him stamping on that player's toe when turning. It actually is. If anybody actually play the football game, yeah? If anybody actually care about football, everybody knows it's more dangerous to put both of your feet on the football than it is for you to be spinning and slightly rest your ankle planting on another player's toe or ankle. Also. It is. I'm telling you. Because, you know, if Chalobah kicks him off of the ball while his both feet is on the ball, the things that will happen to his knees, his ankles, his hips, yo, the amount of damage that can happen to you when you stand up on a foot. That's why when people try to stand up on a soccer ball for long, it doesn't happen, bro. You never see no player stand up on a soccer ball like this for like so long. Never. We're not in a fucking circus. So the mere fact that these guys are interfering with the play, refereeing over in the games, is just killing the game, bro. And it actually is really putting us in a bad place with football. Now, with Leeds and Fulham, I think that Leeds are in a very bad place. Leeds needs to do better when it comes to playing a structure. Because I feel like at the moment, Leeds is all over the place. Leeds is trying to do this, and it might be a strategy of the manager trying to figure out what he wants to do, because he said something in his last post-match where he was like, we've had a draw, we have different results, we're just trying to figure it out. And it makes me understand that he's not hell-bent on just playing one way. He wants to figure out the best way in which for his team to stay in the league. And that shows me that he's learned his lesson from the first time being in the Premier League. So we'll see what happens there. But then now, Newcastle playing Wolves. Eddie Howe has been talking about, as we know, Wizard is going to miss that game. He had picked up a small injury in the game against in his international break, and Wizard isn't the answer. I don't know what this whole hype about Wizard is, but Wizard isn't the answer. And we have to really respect the fact that we look at some of these players and we think they are the best, like high quality. And I'm not hating on Wizard. Wizard is a good player, but Wizard is not the answer. You can't be moving from an Alexander Isak to a Wizard or Voltamede and think, hey, we have two great strikers, because one or the other has to play. And also, they're very different. Now, this young German striker, I don't think we should take him for a joke, though. He's not Isak, but he's not a joke. He's a young, developing young striker who moves between the lines really well. His hold-up play, surprisingly for me, isn't that bad. Like, for me, he's probably at the same level in terms of where they are in the Premier League, in the development, as a Benjamin Sesko. They're young, they're really good strikers, ambitious, have the quality to be top level, but they're just not there yet. I think Sesko is a little bit over him because of the amount of games he's played, and Sesko's done a little bit better than him in the German league. But he can hit a level that can be very scary for Newcastle and can be very scary for the league. And don't be surprised if in a few years we have another Alexander Isak situation with Newcastle with this young man. Also with Wizard is a bit older. Wizard is getting there, so this is his first big move as a player in his career. So this means a lot to him, and I hope he does well. But all I'm saying is he's not Alexander Isak. Now Wolves, on the other hand, haven't really done much business. I'm actually surprised their manager stayed, but I can tell why he stays, because who wants to leave a Premier League job? At the end of the day, you know that your club eventually will get some money. So if you can tug it out, get good results, not get fired in that period, you actually have a good chance of having a Premier League club to keep running and keep being a coach for. Now, losing a job in the Premier League, you ain't getting back one that easy. And Postecoglou's been very lucky. He got fired at the end of the season and he won a trophy. And he's Greek, because no other team would have really been looking at Ange. I promise you, none of the big six teams would be going after Ange Postecoglou right now. Ever. I think that bridge is burnt. That bridge is burnt. So it's either a team like a Forest or Burnley or Fulham, somebody willing to take a risk and don't mind losing and winning in a certain way. West Ham plays Tottenham on the Kudos derby. No. Tottenham, West Ham ain't having it. West Ham is not happy of the approach from Tottenham. West Ham was happy with Tottenham for a little bit when they splashed that money for Kudos. They came and they paid all that money out. They said, we're giving you this. This is for Kudos. But they weren't happy about how they dealt with the Lucas Paqueta situation. And this is why not only have they banned half and half scarves, but they're just not having it. And I totally get it, because why should we do something in a respectful manner the first time, and now we're going to do business again? You're going to try to push it through the social media and try to force our hands because you want a certain price, or you want to force the player to say, hey, I want to move to drop the price. So West Ham was like, nah, I ain't having it. So for y'all, a lot of y'all that saw the celebration by Lucas Paqueta when he was like, put up the phone, throw it down, throw it away, and then he kissed the badge, all dramatics, and but it was a good look, and it's not a bad thing for him to have a little bit of charisma and showing that the move's dead, and it was a good way to announce it. So sometimes football still needs this emotion. VAR has already been killing the emotion in the game. VAR has put football in such a terrible state that a lot of us don't even know how to handle not feeling that emotion of the game anymore. It's actually killing the game, man. And I just hope one day that we can actually get back to a place where we can enjoy football at levels in which we never did. Now, Chelsea's going through a little bit of problem with injuries, and Enzo Maresca was talking to the media. So they asked him about the situation with Cole Palmer, and is Cole Palmer going to be available on the weekend? And this is what he had to say about the situation.
Cole took part of the session yesterday for the first time, not the entire session. Today in the afternoon we have one more session. We're gonna try with him if we see if it's okay. Otherwise, he will be out tomorrow again.
Is this a case of managing him, or is it?
So you're just talking about basically Cole. He is fit, but Cole just needs some time to get back, because you see, this brings us to the situation of the Club World Cup, how it affected teams. Now we see injuries like Dembele and Dewey from PSG already having muscle strains. You have the Lap picking up 10 to 12 weeks, the Lap is out for Chelsea. And now you have a muscular injury with Cole Palmer, who has played nearly every game for Chelsea in the since he's been there. So now his body not playing football all the time for Man City, into going to playing football all the time for Chelsea nearly every game, into the Euros, he was into the competition with England during the summer, back into Chelsea, and then into the Club World Cup. So there's a lot that has happened for Cole Palmer in a short period of time, just like a player like a Kobe Mainoo and others, young players who were able to hit certain like spurts in terms of their growth as footballers, in playing more games, demanding more football. Like, that becomes demanding on your body, especially when you're not accustomed of playing at that intensity for so many games consistently. That's why you build up young players into playing those sort of games. That's why you build up players into getting the loads into their leg to get to that period. But these guys were just like, hey, you're good. Wow, we have to keep you in the team. And that's what kind of now put in these injuries and things like the Club World Cup. Like Cole Palmer Chelsea won the Club World Cup. Cole Palmer was a big part of every game in the Club World Cup. And people think the Club World Cup was an easy thing to win. I think it's a very difficult thing to win, especially when you play. Because the Club World Cup is also about pride now. It's a lot of passion and there's a lot that goes into it. When some of these players playing in Brazil and stuff like that, right? These guys know if they go have a top performance against top clubs in the Club World Cup, they're probably going to get the biggest contracts of their lives. Yes, they're professionals in Brazil. Yes, you see a lot of these clubs now picking up, players from Europe like Jorginho and all these players. Look, you have Anthony Martial just going to Montero and meeting Sergio Ramos in Mexico. So you see players moving around to go play football. But also, these players want to play at the highest level, so they're coming to try to win the Club World Cup. Now, Brentford is in another state where they have a new manager, a lot of new players, but they brought in one of my favorite strikers in Brian Bobby. Now, before Manchester United got Rasmus Højlund, I really wanted Erik ten Hag to go after Bobby, but I think he thought that the physicality of the league, and Bobby was already a bit agey, and he had a little bit of a not so massive spell. And I don't think, because of what happened with Anthony, ten Hag was ready to have another Ajax failure. He couldn't afford that, especially for Ajax, to have a good rapport with Ajax. And also for him as a manager, he can't keep bringing in players that he work with and they fail, because now it looks like he's not a good manager, in which he is a good manager. So there's just a few things that he had to be aware of. But then within that, you have Brentford being able to pick up points. I think Brentford can pick up points here, but you have to be careful because Chelsea is in a good run of form and Chelsea is playing well. And Moise Caicedo at the moment is one of the best CDMs in the world in the way in which he's covering the space and locking gaps. He still needs to do a lot on the ball for me to say, oh, you're world class, you're this. But at the moment, he's not showing the 115, but he's showing me he's around 80 to 90 million pounds. He's getting there. He's getting up to his worth and more, because he have the quality to be that player, and I have no doubt he can be that player. Now, Liverpool versus Burnley. This game is going to be quite fishy. For many reasons. I think the fact that, Liverpool is on a good run, but they're conceding lots of goals. Yeah, they didn't concede against Arsenal, but I don't find that to be something that's like, oh, they didn't concede against a team that isn't scoring goals. Arsenal didn't beat United by a free-flowing goal. Arsenal beat United by a set-piece goal. Arsenal broke the deadlock in their other game in a set-piece goal. And then Arsenal lost to Liverpool 1-0. You understand? So this is why when I was talking about Arsenal earlier, I was saying they need to play games better because it's showing. And the same, Liverpool were a bit better in the game. Liverpool also showed signs that they're vulnerable. And Liverpool played in a way where they actually forced Arsenal to come onto them and try to hit them on the counter. Now, if that's the way Liverpool is going to play, it's not going to be sustainable for the season. And they have to now go and stamp the authority on a team like Burnley and pick up a win. And pick up a massive win and let the league know we ain't here to play. Now I can see Alexander Isak scoring here. I can see him tucking one home against Burnley. But I can also see Burnley, especially after the international break, not having a lot of players going on international duty, being able to rest a bit but train towards the opposition like it's a final might be very beneficial to what they need to do. And this could be an upset because a lot of times we see players coming back from long trips, international duty, having a game like this against a lower opposition. It usually doesn't end well. You know, you usually see the lower teams picking up results, especially in this weekend. So we have to be very aware of this, and I'm excited to see Liverpool's front three of Ekitike, Isak, and Salah. I don't think he'll play that as yet, because I also think he might try a Florian Wirtz on the wing. He's going to play Gakpo, of course. Sabozlai, because he needs to come back into the middle. Is he going to play a Bradley on the right side? So there's a lot of ways he can tweak the team to go after Burnley in different ways he wants to play, which is also what makes them a very different team. And for the first time, I can say they have a lot more dynamics and dynamisms between the team. But then it brings me to the last thing. The Manchester United derby, of course. Well, the Manchester derby, not the Manchester United derby, but we'll be doing a preview of this, of course, so we won't go too much into detail on this. But what we will tell you is that this is going to be a massive game for both teams. Both teams are struggling at the moment, and I don't think the pressure is being applied as much on Ruben as it is on Pep. I think Pep is hitting a mark now where he needs to start to change the way in which he goes about buying players, selling players, developing players. And now you see a lot of players coming into the team, young players, that it's a good thing to see, and I'm quite excited to see how he deals with that situation. Now, he was asked about like just the players that he used to coach, like the Goodegans and the Akanjis and the Edisons, and he had nothing but good words to say about them. So this is what he had to say about them, and this is the class in which this man brings about that a lot of people don't see. And he always gives his players benefits, even sometimes when they don't deserve it. A lot of times I see him very upset with his team, but he really throws players under the bus. He just throws them under the bus by not playing them. But that is the way a coach should throw players under the bus. And he is the best manager in the world right now. Even if he hasn't won anything with City last season, and he didn't win the Prem, this man is the best manager still in the world. 1 year don't make you awful. If he goes on 5 years, then I'd be like, alright, bro, like, your time is up. But he's still the best manager in the world. Now, listen to the way he talks about his players and the class in which he talks about his players.
I think it deserves some words from Eddie and Gundo and Manu that have been unthinkable what we have done in this time without them. Eddie helped us to create a special way. Have been our keeper for the best decade for this club. Gundo the same, one of the best signs when I arrived. How smart, intelligent players, and Manu for different reasons. He's not here, and I wish personally all the best, all three, because they help us a lot to be who we are. And we had the chance after that, when Eddie had 1 or 2 seasons thinking to take another experience. At the end, it happened, and the market gave us a chance to take GG.
Class spoke about the situation with Edison. He wanted a move. He's been here 10 years. He's been wanting this move for a while now. And I appreciate that he stayed here. Goodeghan, one of the first players that were actually at City that Pep brought in, one of his first transfers. been there with him since day one. Manu Kaji coming in, doing his thing, being a big part of the treble winning squad. So this guy consistently shows his class as a manager. And as even in Ruben Amorim's press conference, he spoke about Pep and says he's the best manager, the class, the level in which he plays, the way his team plays. So many things about this guy I just have to respect. And I think that yes and no, a lot of people have a lot to say about Pep and City and how much they spend. But at the end of the day, he's a quality manager. And I think that they are in a period where, yes, they are just rebuilding, but do not sleep on that team, because City is a really, really good football team. And Manchester United is still trying to build themselves into a way in which they're trying to play. They have a few injury problems, which for me is an issue, and we'll go more into it into the review. But there's just a few things going on at the club that I think now they're in a good momentum, and this game for them is as important for both clubs. Both managers, both clubs are under a lot of pressure in this. So for them to have just like a go after it, I can't see both managers just trying to go and draw this game. Honestly, because it doesn't fit any narratives. I mean, Pep needs to win because City is low, but I can see both managers going after the game for a bit, but then settling for a point. I can just see it. Just based on what they're saying in the press conferences and based on what's going on, it just makes sense to me. But then look at the results in which I think that it's going to happen. So since we've talked about every game, why and what we think and what's going on at each club, here's the results that we think will come about after all that detail. So we have Arsenal beating Forest 3-1, Bournemouth beating Brighton 2-1. Then we have Crystal Palace against Sunderland. We have 2-0. We have Everton drawing with Villa. I think Jack Grealish would get an assist here and probably be the man of the match again. But I think they're going to get a draw just because that's the period both clubs are in. One is in a nice movement at home at their new stadium, and then you have Villa just building, trying to get their team, trying to find feet with the both players. I don't think Everton have enough to beat them, but I think they have enough to get a result. Now, Fulham and Leeds, I think Fulham will sweep Leeds off the table just because Fulham's playing well, but not only that, but Leeds, they just don't excite me, bro. I just think Leeds are on their way down. Honestly, I don't think Leeds are going to survive in the Premier League. As well as you see Newcastle playing Wolves, I think Wolves will get an early goal, force Newcastle back a bit, and then Newcastle will turn up the heat. Tonali will take over the game because people like to talk about Bruno Guimaraes, but Tonali is a machine, man. Up and down, left and right, side to side, 360, 180, 90 degrees, call it 285, 265, 186. No matter what it is, Tonali's always there making it tick. Always there making it tick. And then you have Tottenham playing West Ham. I think Kudus gets an assist here or a goal here, but I think West Ham might just pick up the result. Why now? Lucas Paqueta is going to be the main man in this game. He's going to find pockets that I just don't think that they're ready for the way Paqueta plays, because Paqueta is a very good player. I think people really underestimate the quality of Lucas Paqueta. If Lucas Paqueta was at the top team with good players around him, he would be a problem. If he was a bit more, I would say, defensively astute, he could have been a real good number 8 as well. If he had a little bit more defensive intelligence, that guy could be a top number 8. Trust me. He's a really good 10, but as an 8, he could be dangerous. And I don't know if y'all realize, but football is in need of left-footed 8s. There aren't a lot of number 8s that are left-footers. Carlos Baleba's natural position isn't a number 8. He's a number 6. He can drive with the ball, but he's not a number 8. You know, you have Kuminga, right? You have players like that who, all these guys left-footed but defensive midfielders, You have Rabiot again, defensive midfielder. That guy that Manchester United was after, Stuller, defensive midfielder. You know, people might say, oh yeah, no, he's not. He's a Adam Wharton, defensive midfielder. There aren't a lot of number 8s that are left footers. Bernardo Silva is not a natural number 8. Odegaard is not a natural number 8. So don't draw those references to me because they aren't natural number 8s. One's a right winger and one's a number 10. So they are just they aren't a lot of number 8s. People are developing left-footed wingers and central attacking midfielders into number 8s, but there actually are very rare few of left-footed number 8s. So there is a problem, and we need to actually be aware that Lucas Paqueta have a lot of potential. But I just see West Ham winning this game 2-1. And then we have Brentford playing Chelsea. Even if I think Brentford might cause them a bit of problem. And maybe I might slip a goal in here for Brentford. Maybe. But Chelsea's on the road, man. And Chelsea ain't turning back. That train is fucking going and that train ain't coming back. That train is going to keep moving upwards. Chelsea can feel the spirit of winning trophies right now, and that's what have these young men so ambitious. And it's good to see. I love to see young players fulfilling their future. I have nothing against young players doing well. No matter where they are from, what they're doing. I know so many young players right now chasing their dreams, and I'm so happy for every one of them. Every one of them, because I've passed their parts, know them when they were small, coach them a bit, help them, watch them grow, invest into them when no one wanted to. And I'm not saying that I was there for them all the way. No. I was just there for them when they needed a big brother to talk to sometimes, or they wanted somebody to go to the field and kick around with them. Or I would be like, hey, let's run a session. Let's go to the field together. Let's do this. Let's do this. Instead of watching these young men do negative thing in the streets, I'd rather pull them on the road and have them do it off the streets and have them doing positive things. Because I know what it's like to have friends who was in negativity and they have potential at levels where nobody know. I can call so many players right now, but I just don't want to put their name on blast because it's easy to find people now. But in actuality, man, there's so many players out there with so much quality, but the problem is the mindset and the discipline. Which brings me to the last two games with discipline, with players like Mohamed Salah and Liverpool playing Burnley. And you have to be disciplined to come into the Premier League, but you also have to be disciplined to win the Premier League. And both of these teams are very disciplined in the way they play. And Slot and Scott Parker have both their teams playing in very good ways. I don't think Burnley is as bad as people think. And I also don't think Liverpool is as good as people think. But Liverpool is a good football team. And let's see how it pans out. But I do think Liverpool will pick up a slight result here, even if Burnley will give them some trouble. I just think Salah will come out and Isak will come out with some goals in that game. And then the Manchester United derby, of course. I wasn't going to give him my prediction on this one, but I know I have to. So, Manchester United beating City 2-1 just because I think that United just have a little bit more momentum than City. City have a bit of injury issues, and I still think they're trying to find their feet with their new players, whereas I think United have now a bit of a base and structure in the way they want to play and just the high energy and the way they're going. I know United is going to go after this game. I can see them picking up a result here. So, with all that being said, now let's jump into what I know a lot of y'all been waiting for, which is this thing right here. And it is the Fantasy Premier League. Now, unfortunately, this is my team for the week. We have Sanchez in goal, Cass, Spence, Cucurella. Now, I picked those three defenders because I'm a big fan of just wing backs usually get you points. Spence is in a good momentum at the moment, and I think he might pick up an assist or be very pivotal in what Tottenham is going forward. So I'm just taking the risk on him this week. Also, Chelsea against Brentford. Cucurella does really good against Brentford, and Brentford allows Cucurella a lot of room every time they play them. So I'm going with that as well, just because of what he does, one against Brentford, but Cucurella also is a very good wing back. And then I have my boys Semenyo, Rogers, Embuemo, and Gibbs White. Now, Gibbs White, because I think that Gibbs, the new manager, Bounce, and all these things will give him a bit of a spark in the game, and maybe he can pull something out in the game for Forest, even if I still do think Arsenal might just have enough to win. And then Embuemo, good run of form, scored against Fulham, had an assist, looking really good, looking sharp, looking good for his international team Cameroon. So I just think he's in a real good momentum. And City is scared of Brian Mbeumo. Brian Mbeumo haunts City every time he plays them as well. So for me, and especially with the injuries they have, and so I can see him causing some troubles there. And Roger is one of my favorite players, of course, as usual, doing big things out there and playing well for England in the week. I think he's going to keep that momentum going and pick up something in this game. Antonio Semenyo, what a player. Now, all the racism going on with Semenyo and all these things happening, even then he still responded to the way in which his team wants him to play, and he needs to be the main man, and he's doing well. You can't hate on him, and I think he's getting goals, adding goals and assists to his games at the moment, which is why I'm going with him, because I think he can pick up a few points against Brighton, because Brighton is usually very open. And Haaland, Joe, and Mateta, three of the best strikers in the league right now. João Pedro is showing us, his quality, as well as Haaland. Well, you already know. I think he'll score the one goal against United that I've predicted. And Mateta, one of the best strikers in the league right now, scoring goals left, right, and center, build up play, strong, good in the air, good with the ball and his feet, just like Haaland, and good just like Pedro. I think three of them are so good. Different players, but very good strikers each one. Strike the balls well each one. And this is the fantasy team for the week. So overall, the Premier League is back this week, and I hope you all watch safe, be safe, enjoy, banter, and have your opinions with each other. Don't you can disagree to agree, and let us just bring back the love to football. Let us bring back, as we know, we're in a period of life now where the air is thin in terms of there's a lot going on in the world outside of football that is out of our control. But what we can do in our control is be good people to our neighbors, our friends, the people around us. But not only that, shed positive life. Encourage people to be the best version of themselves. And the minute we can do that as humans, the minute we start to do that as people, the minute we can start to look at football as a way in which we can grow as a community and be better for each other, I think we're going to be in such a better place off in society and in the football world in the near future. Let us stop using the football platform for political gain, but let us use it as a way in which we encourage the young ones and motivate them to change their mindset, change their minds, change the way they see football. Now, just to say one more thing before we leave this. Kylian Mbappe was talking about, basically, he would never encourage his kids to play football, and I just find that to be so disrespectful to every young man who grows up every day, who wakes up every morning and tries to go and be a professional. Don't say those things. If that's the way you feel after making $12 million a year, do not say that, bro. It actually hurts us who talk about football, who do all this for fucking free. We would do all this for free, whether we getting paid or not. We would do this for free because we love football. People come and talk football. Yeah, I might not agree with 90% or 99% of the things a lot of these podcasters, content creators be saying, but what I do agree with is that we all love football. Football is something that we love. They might not love it as much as me or you or whoever's watching this, because you know, if you watch me, I know you love football because I love football. And anybody that know me know I can spend all day only speaking football. I don't need to watch anything on Netflix. I don't need to watch anything on Stan, Hulu, Tubu, nothing. You can name it. All I need is somewhat a way in which I can see a ball kick, and I am the happiest person in the world. I don't go to bars. I don't go to clubs like that. But you know what I do every day? I go to the football field. And I'm not even a professional right now. And I'm saying I go to the field every day and put in some work. So if I can do it, somebody who wants it definitely should do it and definitely can go do it. So yes, people, it's been your boy Yaya, of course, always. Just shedding light and showing you a new perspective on the way we see football. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the page. Keep hitting the bell for notifications. So of course I can keep bringing you great content going forward. As usual, take care of yourself. Stay sexy, my people. Please. Please. And ciao.